Thursday night. I'm here, Graham Coffee, your friend. You can find me on Twitter, Dog Out West. I'm with my friend, John Smith, aka at John Tweet Sports, the most literal username on all of Twitter because he's John and he tweets about sports.
That's it.
We are here for some Week 9 picks. We are going to, of course, get into Georgia, Florida, because that's what we do around here. But we're also going to talk about all the national games. John, you've been on a pretty big heater this season. What is your against the spread record now? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, so I am 35. Hang on. You asked me a question that I should know off the top of my head. I think I'm 35-19. I'll confirm that just real quick. But yeah, I think I'm 35-19 against the spread. I have also been on a heater. I'm 25-10 in Prize Picks. I mean, this has been a good John Tweet Sports in the sports book has been good for the economy this season. So we're gonna try to keep
John
it going.
Makes money is really
it's been good, man. It's been good. Listen, here's the thing, Graham. We're at mid-season. There is still time to lose all of it. So
that is very true, my friend.
There's plenty of time to just lose it all. But right now we're going to enjoy where we are.
Yeah. So I am coming off a little bit of a rough week. I laid a large amount of money on Prize Picks through 4 lines out there. 3 of them hit. And then Devin A-Chain, who was plus 105 rush yards on my pick against South Carolina. He hit 100 rush yards late in the third quarter and did not get any more carries in the game. So gross mismanagement by Jimbo Fisher. Feels like that's something we could say every week. And really just a bad beat for your boy. On my spread picks, week 8, I came out. It was a rough week. I came out 5-7 on the year, still sitting here about 7 games over 500, but not hitting at that high percentage like you are. Week 7 was a good week for me, was 9-3. So looking to get back to that spot. I kind of actually told some people that DM me about picks, like last week was really good. Maybe fade me this week. So I hope you did it, but I like the board this week, John. I'm going to be honest with you. I love the board.
It's a good board. Listen, sometimes Vegas, you feel like sometimes they dangle, kind of these carrots out in front of you. And sometimes they just but they do that a lot. But sometimes they're just like, here's a whole piece of carrot cake. Just have at it. Eat it. I feel like that's what we got this week. I feel like it's like, like it looks so appetizing. So hopefully we can trust what we know about ball, what we've seen on the film. We got a large sample size with these teams now, and we can make some money this week.
Yes, sir. All right, let's get into it. So before we hit the Saturday slate, do you have any? Did you have any Thursday night picks for this evening that you wanted to share?
I don't.
Okay.
This evening is pretty. The Virginia Tech at their NC State game is pretty appealing. But I didn't put anything on it, so would love to hear what you got.
Yeah. So that line, I don't know what NC State's quarterback situation is. I mean, that over under was like, I think 39.5. I was tempted to bet the under because NC State's defense has been really good. I don't know if, I feel like that could be a game though, where there's like some defensive touchdowns or some short fields. And so I stayed away from the 7:30 slate. I did take Utah -7, little 10 p.m. Eastern action on a Thursday night. I love that. Yeah. Utah on the road at Washington State. That line earlier in the week was a little over a touchdown, which I probably wouldn't have touched it at, but seeing it at 7, I felt like, Utah is not a good defense, but I think that they're a good enough defense to get stops against Washington State on a frequent enough basis. And that offense, man, they've been cooking for a while. That's a good offense. They put up a lot of points. So I'm going to roll with the Utes tonight, late night. Friday night slate. It's kind of an interesting one in Provo. You got ECU on the road at BYU.
Mm-hmm.
Cougars are just a 3-point favorite. I am taking, East Carolina is coming off a blowout win over UCF, where that was a line that kind of stunk. UCF was a 5.5-point favorite. I did bet ECU money line there because just felt like, I don't know. There's just some of those lines sometimes where it's like Vegas is daring me to do this. I'm going to take them again in this spot on the road at BYU. I think BYU's offense has been pretty anemic lately. ECU's defense actually had a pretty good performance against UCF. I just don't think this BYU team is as good as we thought they were maybe after that win over Baylor. I'm taking the Pirates plus 130 on the money line to get it done straight up.
Yeah, I would take the money line for ECU tomorrow as well for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. So we are in agreement.
Lovely. All right. So let's move into Saturday at noontime. Kind of the big maybe marquee game of the day in the noon hour. Ohio State on the road at Penn State. Buckeyes favored by 15 over the Nittany Lions. Penn State, nice little bounce back against Minnesota last week. Won that, that game was a under touchdown spread. They won by, I think, 24 on the field. It was never close. Granted, Minnesota's backup quarterback was playing. But, you got Ohio State going to Happy Valley. Not a nighttime whiteout game, which this normally is. But what are your thoughts?
Man, so this is interesting. This Penn State team is super interesting to me, right? You saw them against a not very good Auburn team just completely dominate. Then you saw them against a Michigan team where Michigan really, loves to just line it up and run it at you, and Michigan just absolutely dominated Penn State. And so I think, Ohio State on the flip side, Ohio State, they scored 54 on Iowa last week, but they only had 3 drives that started on the Ohio State side of the field. So they were on short fields. I think most of their drives started inside the Iowa 40, which was wild. And so I think Penn State has played has played Ohio State really closely. But I'm not sure that Penn State's game matches up with Ohio State's game. And it is interesting. It's a battle of 2 different styles, whereas Michigan and Penn State was a battle of a similar style. And so you could be in a situation where because there's a yin to the yang, maybe Penn State can kind of keep this close. I'm not touching the spread. I don't know, right? Like so my pick is I'm not touching the spread. What I am going to go, though, is I am going to take the under 61 because I do think that this is going to be a game where Penn State is probably going to, try to run the ball, make it ugly at times. I think Ohio State is certainly going to be in a place where I think they're going to struggle more than they have in other games to score. But I could definitely see Ohio State covering the 14.5. But I don't see this game getting over 61. So I'm staying away from the spread, but I'm taking the under 61. What about you?
Yeah, so I like the under pick. I haven't really thought super hard about that total. You brought up that Iowa game from last week, and that kind of sent me down a wormhole earlier this week of looking at drive data, just raw drive data, because you look at that score of Ohio State, Iowa, and you say 54 points. Wow, the Buckeyes must have just, run up and down the field on them, and they really didn't. Against top 25 defenses this year, Ohio State's average drive distance is just 33 yards. For some context there, like Georgia's is 42.5. Clemson is 39.5, which is kind of surprising. Like, I guess my thing being, I don't think Penn State's offense is super, super dynamic, but I think Clifford is a pretty experienced guy. Like, I think they can hold on to the ball and not create a bunch of turnovers, right? The big thing here is, there's I guess there's a temptation here to let that Michigan Penn State game bias me a little bit because I bet on Penn State on the road. I was like, oh, I'll take the. They're a little less than a touchdown under, or a little more than a touchdown underdog. Like I think they can hang in there, keep it a 7-point game. They get smoked, but what Michigan does really well is run the ball. Ohio State, they were able to run the ball on that Notre Dame defense when it was like winning time in the fourth quarter. But this is a passing offense. Like the pass sets up everything. And I do think probably the best unit on Penn State's team is that secondary. Joey Porter Jr. is one of my favorite players in the country to watch. I think he's just a lot of fun. So I am tempted here to, I guess the other thing here is just like Penn State, for whatever reason, especially under Franklin, like they don't beat Ohio State on the field, but they've never lost by more than 14 to the Buckeyes under James Franklin. So,
which is wild. Yeah.
If this was 13.5, I'd be on Ohio State. At 15, I'm going to take Penn State and just kind of, this is a hold on to your butt special, right? Like might be looking for a backdoor cover here with 7 minutes left in the game or, something along those lines. The thing that scares me is Ohio State's defense right now is actually first in the country in success rate. And the gamble that I'm making here, right, is that is more a product of them facing terrible offenses like Notre Dame, Iowa, so on and so forth, than it is, them being the best defense in the country. I think that, we're going to, like Michigan State has been pretty bad, and they were able to score 20 on this team. I think Penn State's defense is good enough to keep Ohio State into like the high 30s, and I think their offense is good enough to kind of get 24. I think Penn State will run the ball in this game, play ball control, try to limit possessions. So that makes me like your underplay even more as well. But I'm going to go Penn State plus 15.
Yeah, and for Mark in the chat, listen, I think we all agree that Sean Clifford is pretty mediocre at quarterback. But I think the history of this game, Ohio State, I mean, again, their defense hasn't proven to be world beaters, and we have seen this game exactly what Graham was saying. I mean, it stays around 14, and so the line being at 15 or 14 and a half in some places it's not a bad play. I definitely feel like the ball control is going to keep it under 61. I just don't. 61 would be. Let's say Ohio State blows Penn State out, right? 41-17 is still under 61. So I just feel like 61 is a pretty good play.
All right, another interesting game in the noon slate: Syracuse at Notre Dame. Hughes, came up just short against Clemson last week. Only a 2.5-point favorite on the road in South Bend. Any leans or feelings on this one?
You go first. I have leans and feelings, but I want to see if you can talk me out of them.
Well, Syracuse has been good to me this year, man. Like I've ridden Syracuse to a lot of wins.
Okay.
I think one thing that when I was doing the research on this kind of deep dive article I did earlier this week on drive data and success rates, something that popped off the screen is that Syracuse is first in the country in passing down success rate. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, when they get into third and long, they've been good at bailing themselves out. I think Garrett Schrader has actually been pretty strong. I just think this is the week. Like, I think Notre Dame's defense is pretty good. I don't think they're phenomenal, but I think they're pretty good. And I think this is kind of the week maybe where the magic comes to an end. Going on the road, like Notre Dame, I know they lost to Stanford a couple weeks back, but like I feel like that's kind of more of an anomaly than anything. So I'm gonna take Notre Dame plus 2.5, and I'm gonna feel good about it. And it might even be a money line spot with that line under a field goal.
Okay, you talked me into it then. So I was taking Notre Dame money line. I
right.
think, I think Notre Dame, so they played really well last week against BYU. They scored over 20 points in the first quarter. And I think that Syracuse, I think that game at Clemson, um, it's going to be interesting to see the coaching job that Dino Babers does this week, because I think that game at Clemson, I think Syracuse had a lot of apples in that basket, and I think from a mental standpoint, coaches say this all the time. It's like classic coach speak. Don't let one loss turn into two losses, right?
Right.
But I think for me, I think I'm gonna take Notre Dame plus 2.5. I think I'm gonna take Notre Dame to win the game, because I think Notre Dame has momentum going in the direction of, they just beat BYU in Las Vegas. They had a fast start for the first time this year. Their defense is playing well. I think Syracuse, the momentum just going the other way from that loss at Clemson. I see this being a real opportunity for Notre Dame. So I'm going to go on that side. Not a lot of deep analysis from a statistical standpoint, but I just think Notre Dame, I think they have the players to win this kind of game. And I think Syracuse, coming off last week at Clemson, it's going to be tough for them to bounce back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with you there. All right. Also in the noon slate, Arkansas Auburn.
Oh, God.
Hogs are minus 3.5 going on the road. We have a Brian Harsin legacy game on our hands here. I like reports of all sorts of guys trying to jump ship over there on the plains. I feel like this is one of those, like, Auburn has played hard this year, right?
Yes, they have.
And they gave Ole Miss a good run for their money. They're coming off a bye week.
Yep.
I think Arkansas is as well, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. Man, I'm kind of at a spot, like, I know that they've played hard on the field, but when you have to come out as a head coach and say, we're not letting guys redshirt unless it's a medical redshirt, like, that says quite a bit to me. Arkansas, their pass defense has been putrid, but Robbie Ashford can't really pass.
Yeah.
So I am going to take, like, this is just kind of a I have faith in Sam Pittman type of spot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to take Arkansas minus 3.5.
Yeah, I also have faith in Arkansas's offensive line against this Auburn pass rush that has done nothing, right? Auburn, they have 13 sacks this year, but just 33 tackles for a loss on the entire year. I think that's in the lower. That might be. I don't think it's last in the SEC, but it's like 11th or 12th in the SEC on tackles for a loss. And so I think Arkansas is going to win the game. I think KJ Jefferson is going to, kind of one of those classic kind of games where he just can do a lot of what he wants, right? I don't think the Auburn defense is going to be able to slow him very much. I do think, though, that Auburn is probably going to put up some points. I think, Tank Bigsby looked, he played really well against Ole Miss. He ran for, I think, 170 yards, and so I do think that Arkansas is going to win. I think Arkansas is going to cover. I do think that there's going to be a lot of points scored in the game, though.
Yes, and good stat here from our friend SEC StatCat. The SEC offenses with the best rushing yard before contact average in standard time so far this year. Georgia, number 1, 3.36 yards on average before contact. Florida, number 2, 3.33. Arkansas, number 6, 2.52. Not great, but not terrible. Auburn, 14th at 1.39, last in the conference. So in a game where we don't think your quarterback can throw the ball, we have good evidence that your line can't run it. KJ Jefferson's been fantastic as well. I mean, he's really, by a lot of advanced statistical measures, his accuracy downfield has been
Mhm.
nothing short of
Yeah.
very, very high. So
I'll also say, from a culture standpoint, our good buddy Dwight texted me as we were talking and said Auburn is a dumpster fire, pit boss by 90. Um, which I which I think though there's something to that. I think the culture right now at Auburn, right? You had another player, maybe two players. Yeah, you had a punter and a wide receiver announced they were going to hit the transfer portal at the end of the year this week. You do have, culture is a big part of this, right? And so I think Sam Pittman definitely has a better culture, definitely trending in the better direction. But it's tough for me that this game is for basically last in the SEC West at this point, right? I mean, it's a tough game. So I do think Arkansas, for that reason, I think Arkansas is going to have a little more fight in them too. So
yeah, I don't think a Sam Pittman team is going to quit in late October. And Auburn continues to be on quit watch for me. They have not quit yet, but
they might after this week. I think Arkansas is going to beat them by 14-17, and I think that could do a lot of damage.
This might even be a spot. This is kind of some real degenerate type gambling stuff that I'm about to talk about here, but like this is not a bad alt line spot.
No, buy some points, man.
Like, yeah, go bet that thing at -6.5, Arkansas -6.5, and get plus 150 or plus 140.
Correct.
Double, basically making 40 to 50% on your dollars, and thank your friend Graham.
Yeah, that's a great tip because Arkansas's win this game by a touchdown or more. So 6.5 by that alt line. Yeah. All right.
Any feelings on TCU West Virginia? Kind of the last one in the noon slate that may be of some national interest.
Yeah, I think TCU is going to win the game. I think it's going to be really close. I wouldn't be surprised if I think West Virginia is going to cover the 7.5. So I'm going to go West Virginia plus 7.5. It's at Morgantown. It's a noon kickoff. That TCU has been, their offense has been incredible. Their defense, if Adrian Martinez had stayed in the game, Kansas State would have won that game. I mean, they were blowing them out of the water when Adrian Martinez got hurt. And then I guess, the backup quarterback at TCU got hurt. They got down to like their third QB.
JT Daniels might want to skip this one, man, considering his history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So TCU is definitely going to get after JT Daniels, but I also think TCU, their defense does not have the skill players to run with some of these West Virginia wide receivers. So West Virginia's been up and down. I think this will be a game where they're up. My bet is going to be West Virginia plus 7.5. Don't feel super strong in that, and I feel like you're probably going to take the other side, but that's what I'm going with.
I'm not taking the other side, actually.
Okay, great.
I think both these defenses are trash.
They're hot dog water. Dog water is what we say in 2022.
Yeah, they are some of the assiest defenses in college football, as we like to say on the show. I think there might be some money line potential here. Like, this line stinks to high heaven to me, man. Like,
yeah, it
TCU,
does.
Like, West Virginia just got blown out at home by Texas Tech. TCU coming in here only favored -7.5, I think, is like kind of Vegas daring you to bet TCU in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I like the over 69 in this game.
Oh,
yeah. It is a lot of points, but TCU, they've been that team this year that's felt like an early 2010s Big 12 team, like a Mike Leach era Big 12 kind of.
Yep.
We're going to play basketball and it's going to be, 70, 80 point totals. So give me the over 69 in TCU at West Virginia.
Yeah.
And
this is going to be, it's going to be a 38-35 or 41-35 kind of game. It's just a matter of, is TCU or West Virginia going to be on the winning side of it? But I do feel like this is going to be a classic Big 12 kind of shootout.
Yes, sir. All right. Moving on to the 3:30 slate. for those of you that have been waiting patiently for us to talk about Georgia versus Florida, I should say, in Jacksonville, this is the moment that we're going to do that. John, I've given a lot of analysis on this game on the film preview, so I'm going to take a back seat here and love to hear your thoughts.
Well, my analysis is Anthony Richardson is hot dog water. No.
Said the Kentucky defensive back.
A Kentucky defense. That joke, for those of you who don't know, a Kentucky defensive back after Kentucky beat Florida actually said that Anthony Richardson is hot dog water. I think, so this game, you did some great analysis, a great advanced breakdown of advanced stats. I think this game, comes down to what it comes down to every year in this game is the line of scrimmage. I think Florida, their only hope of success in this game is going to be running the ball. And I think Kirby Smart, is going to Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann and Will Muschamp, I think, are going to scheme up a plan where they're going to dare Florida to run it, right? I mean, I think they're going to they're going to scheme a plan where they're going to dare Florida to throw it. I think they're going to put the game on Anthony Richardson. And what we've seen is that outside of Tennessee was one of those games where Anthony Richardson threw for 453 yards, which is still mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
He threw for 66 yards against Missouri. Like, I think that is probably, one of the best defenses that they played this year, Kentucky being the other one. And he didn't have success versus either of those defenses. And so I think Georgia is going to play to stop the run. I think they're going to force Florida to throw it. And I think Georgia's secondary is far and away the best secondary that Florida has played so far this year. And so I don't see this game being close. I think Florida's going to struggle to score points. I think they probably will get some points late. And I don't think Georgia's going to struggle to score points. I mean, we saw that Florida defense against Tennessee, and Georgia is scoring against FBS schools. They're scoring on 64.2% of their drives. And so I think that's going to continue this week. I think Georgia's going to score a lot of points. My only concern with the 22-point line is does Georgia get way ahead and then put it in cruise control for Tennessee next week, right? Does Georgia get out to, is it a 34, to 7 kind of game, and Kirby, winds it down and the third unit gives up a score or something, right? But I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Georgia's going to score over 40. I think Georgia might score 50 in this game. I would almost say this is a 52-13, 52-10 kind of game. Because I feel that strongly about Georgia doing two things. One, Kirby Smart wanting to make a point again for recruiting and all those purposes, and also with Tennessee coming on, being on deck. I really believe that stuff matters to these coaches, no matter what they want to say. I really believe that Tennessee coming in next week matters, and I think Georgia is going to give Tennessee a lot to think about by scoring a lot of points this game and doing some things that that we probably haven't seen yet. I don't think they're definitely not going to unload the playbook, but I do think they're going to put in some wrinkles that we haven't seen yet that'll be successful against Florida to give Tennessee something to think about. So it's going to be a lot of points for Georgia. I think Georgia's going to cover. I think Georgia's going to score a lot of points. I think, Georgia's 4-3 against the spread this year, which is not what you want to put your money on when it's a 22-point line and the biggest in the history of the series. But I just don't see Florida being able to score. I think at best they score 13, maybe. Let's say even if they score 17, I still think Georgia's going to score over 40. So
I have something really beautiful I need to share with you. It's very off topic, but
okay.
It just came to my attention that the score of the Southern Miss ULL game is 6-2 right now. And I just think that's beautiful, man. It's a touching tribute to Tommy Tupperville by Southern Miss in Louisiana.
We had this weekend. We had, I think, the Jaguars and the Giants. This weekend was like an 8-7 game at one point. Yeah, in the end of the first quarter, Jaguars and Giants were 8-7. So we are having some magical scores this week in football.
Yeah, no, it's quite beautiful. So on this game, yeah, I'm with you. If you haven't watched the film preview, it's on the same YouTube channel, the Dawgs Central YouTube channel. If you're here and you haven't subscribed or liked this video, please do that. We really appreciate it. You can also read my my kind of written breakdown of this game on dawgcentral.com. It's a free article, but you should totally subscribe to dawgcentral.com while you're there. Yeah, I'm with you, man. There's not much more to be said. The question you have to ask yourself is, do you think Georgia's defense is more like Kentucky and Missouri or Tennessee, South Florida, and Utah? I think it's Kentucky, Missouri. I am going to I picked Georgia to win this game 48-13. I think that, and I don't think they got to do anything special to put up 48 in this game. I think they can lean on them and run the offense that they've ran for most of the last few weeks. Maybe we see a deep shot or two in the first half or in the third quarter just to kind of make that a threat going into next week. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Not much more to be said on it. So, real quick, one of our watchers asked a question about Tyron Ingram-Dawkins. I definitely felt like he would be a breakout star this year. Just physically, what he showed on G-Day, being able to speed rush a guy like Broderick Jones, being able to move Xavier Truss, like he's a freak. There's a reason he was a 5-star defensive lineman by some of the recruiting services. I don't feel like he's behind schedule physically with his like actual football play development. He got put in the doghouse, or not maybe doing all the things he needs to do off the field. I think he's out of the doghouse. I think, especially in this kind of stretch coming up with Georgia having some key games and going on the road, that we will see more of him. And I think he's got the potential to be a very important player for this offense. So, I think, the story of his 2022 is still to be written in many ways. All right.
One other thing real quick. I want to do this for our guy, Dwight. Bulldogs battling breast cancer are taking pledges for points scored for Vanderbilt and Florida. So Georgia's already scored 55 versus Vanderbilt. You can make a pledge to give a number of dollars per point to Bulldogs battling breast cancer. If you haven't done that yet, please, jump on Twitter and ping Bulldogs battling breast cancer with your pledge. I'm giving $5 per point, which means if Georgia scores another 50, I'm going to be in it for over $500, which I'm totally happy to be in for Bulldogs battling breast cancer. It's a great cause, very near and dear to the Georgia community. So if you haven't jumped in on the pledge, $1 per point, totally perfect. Just hop on. All right.
Yes,
we can move on now.
No, thank you for bringing that up.
You got it.
Okay. Also, in the 3:30 hour, Oklahoma State going on the road to Kansas State. Wildcats a narrow 1.5 point favorite. Both these teams have been in a lot of close games this year. Kind of, looking back on our preseason Big 12 preview, these were kind of two teams that I know we were both really high on. You particularly high on Kansas State for a good reason. How do you see this one?
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State hasn't beaten Oklahoma State since 2018. I think Oklahoma State has ruined a couple of decent seasons for Kansas State through that process. I think it's really, without knowing the Kansas State quarterback situation, it's very difficult for me to take their side. And even with knowing the Kansas State quarterback situation, I think Oklahoma State is for real. I think Oklahoma State, they play enough defense when they have to, And Spencer Sanders showed last week. I mean, he had an off game 2 weeks ago, and everybody kind of, was writing him off a little bit versus TCU, and because his shoulder was hurt. He comes back relatively healthy this week and goes off for well over 400 total yards. I think Kansas State's defense is good, but I see Oklahoma State winning this game outright and keeping the momentum rolling that they built last week. So give me Oklahoma State. I think, it being at Kansas State, it being, a game that both teams have to have, definitely gives Kansas State a little bit of a boost there. But I just think Oklahoma State is going to be too much. I think their defense is going to be good enough, and I think Spencer Sanders is going to score some points.
I am with you. I think there's often value in the marketplace betting on Oklahoma State. He is a lightning rod that a lot of people have strong feelings on.
Yep.
This is a football show. We're not here to talk about any of that shit. So I mean, I like Oklahoma State and Liberty, truthfully, are two teams that I often feel like you can find an edge that the public, kind of undervalues often. So give me the Cowboys, and I'll take the money line, because why not? It's a 1.5 point spread.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I also think I was trying to look and see what the total is on that game. I think it's pretty low. I think. Hang on, I'll check it real quick. But I think it was in the 50s. And so if it's still there, yeah. So it's a 1.5 point spread, and the total is 56. I might take the over 56 too.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
All right.
All right. So also at 3:30, Northwestern at Iowa.
Graham, this might be the lowest scoring. Well, we had Illinois and Iowa that was 9-6, right? Man, this game. So the total for this game is 37.5. And that for me might be 7.5 points too high. So this might be the ugliest game in college football this year. Illinois and Iowa is pretty ugly, so maybe it can't get that ugly. But Northwestern's last games, they've scored 24, 14, 7, and 7. Iowa, their last 4 games, they scored 27, 14, 6, and 10. And you're at a place where you're like, all right, can either of these teams score, over 20? I'm going to take the under 37.5. I know that's crazy, but I just see this being a 21 14 kind of game, a 21-10 kind of game. I don't think Iowa. They rolled out there. Everybody called for Spencer Petras to be benched, right? What is Brian Ferentz doing? What is Kurt Ferentz doing? What does Spencer Petras have on their family that they keep rolling him out there? Well, they put in the backup quarterback against Ohio State, and the dude immediately threw a pick. Like it was immediate. Like they're running with Spencer Petras because their backup quarterback is horrific, and so. I don't think Iowa's going to be able to score many points. I don't think Northwestern is either. My play on this one is under 37.5. What do you got?
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm right there with you for all the same reasons. Under 37.5. I dare either of these teams to score points. I actually think Iowa -11 is probably a pretty decent play here. Northwestern's offense is that bad, and their defense is that bad. But, even if the score is 28-7 Iowa, they're still not hitting that 37.5. And I think Northwestern's offense is worse than Iowa's. Under of the year right here in Northwestern.
I mean, I would have never thought in college football in 2022 that we would be saying it's 37.5. Like, go under 37.5. It's just this is brutal. But yes, Northwestern's offense. I mean, Northwestern's offense scored 14 versus Miami of Ohio. So it's going to be tough sledding.
Agreed. All right. Another game of somewhat interest to us. Missouri at South Carolina. Gamecocks favored by 3.5. Any leans here?
So you have to think with South Carolina. So South Carolina entered the top 25 for the first time this week, right? They got absolutely destroyed by Georgia. And then since then, they have played Charlotte, South Carolina State, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. When they played Kentucky, Will Levis did not play in that game. So the games that they've won since they played Georgia have been, the Texas A&M game. I will give them credit. I think that was a good win, a good win that they came out fast. They hung on to win. I think Texas A&M, his offense definitely got Jimbo'd in that game. They did. Jimbo'd is now a verb. Texas A&M got Jimbo'd because of what you mentioned at the top of this, right? You got to play on A-Chain. A-Chain is like doing incredibly well, gaining yardage, and then Jimbo for some reason just decides like, oh, well, that's the one thing that's working. Let's just not do that anymore.
Yeah, let me throw it with my quarterback who just maybe separated his shoulder.
Correct. All that being said, I think Missouri is a really good defense. I think if you watch what Missouri and Kentucky's defense are very similar to me, and South Carolina struggled against that Kentucky defense, and so I think Missouri is going to cover. I could see this being a 27-24 kind of game, a 24-21 kind of game. I think, both offenses are probably going to struggle a little bit, but I think Missouri's going to cover the 3.5. So I'm close to sprinkling the Missouri money line just because when you look at the games that South Carolina has won and the momentum that they built, it's been built in a really ugly way, but they have won the games. But it has certainly been built. But yes, my only hesitation is can Missouri score enough to cover? But I think they can. I think they can score enough to cover. Not sure if they can score enough to win.
Yeah, no, I'm here with you, man. I mean, the Rattler against that A&M defense, 12 of 25 passing for 168. I love Marshawn Lloyd. I think he's a great back. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the SEC. But I think Mizzou's run defense is pretty stout. And yep. I think that, they're a pretty good pass rush team that I think can, do some things to affect Rattler.
Yep.
This just feels like one of those spots where, where South Carolina, we're ranked, and Shane Beamer's out here kind of puffing his chest out, talking a little shit.
Yeah, nobody quit. Yeah, and they're playing. I mean, Missouri's a top 20 defense. So against FBS teams, Missouri's 18th in the country in total yards allowed. And their rushing defense is exactly like you said. I mean, that's the strength of their defense is.
And I think their secondary is one of the best in the country, honestly. Yeah. I mean, that especially with Abrams Drain back, he was the guy that took the crane kick to the head from Darnell Washington in that game. And once he went out, it did change some things for Georgia in the passing game. Georgia's receivers struggled to get separation in man coverage against Mizzou at times, especially early in that game. Yeah, I don't. Missouri's offense has been so bad that this is like this is a hold your breath kind of spot. But I am still inclined to believe that that half point there means a lot to me in this game.
It does.
I don't think the under 46 is a bad play here at all either, though.
No, I mean Missouri. They're averaging 22.3 points per game against FBS opponents. South Carolina is averaging just around 30, I think, but I think that includes Charlotte, which is in there, right? So, I don't think Missouri. I would pick Missouri to win the game if I thought that they could score enough points. I do think they can score enough points to keep it close. I think they're going to hold South Carolina to a low point total. So I'm gonna take Missouri to cover. Wouldn't be surprised if they just won the game.
All right, I'm right there with you. 7:30 p.m. on the banks of the Tennessee River.
What the people have been clamoring for. Kentucky and Tennessee.
Kentucky at Tennessee. Vols are a 12. I'm sorry, they're a 12.5 point favorite right now.
They are
actually.
12. Yeah, 12.
Let me edit my little graphic there.
12.5.
All right, John. So here's my feelings on this.
Give it to me.
I was just talking. I've referenced a couple times on this show some of that drive data I was working with this week. Tennessee against top 25 defenses, their average drive length 28.1 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That is lower than Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, and a host of others.
Yep.
I think they are very good. I don't think they're elite. I don't think they're great. I think that, I think Kentucky is sneaky good up front. I think that, look, I'm going to say it. I would take Levis over Hooker tomorrow, especially behind a bad offensive line, which is what Kentucky has had. Like, I think Kentucky's offensive line is bad, but I think they're good enough to not have Levis under duress all night.
Right.
If you look at Tennessee this year, I think they've been the benefactors of some luck, which every team that goes undefeated has to be, right? I'm not trying to totally throw shade on the Vols, but I think if this game, I think if they were 5-2, which they very well could be, that the spread in this game would be like 4.5 to 6.5, and it's 12.5. So that's a lot of points. Kentucky has not given up 24 since the Tennessee game last year.
Yep.
I haven't given up more than 24. That game was 45-42. I think that Stoops he's too good of a coach for them to not have some answers. They're not going to give up 70-yard passes over and over. Yep. What gives me comfort in this game for Kentucky's offense, A, they have Rodriguez back, but B, they held the ball for like 40 minutes last year in this game. And, they put up 42 on Tennessee's defense as well, but they did it in sustained long drives all the way down the field. They were not dependent on the explosive plays. No. Explosive plays are great, but a large amount of variance comes into the situation when you are an offense that lives and dies by explosive plays. Tennessee very much is. So give me the Wildcats plus 12.5.
Love it. Love that. Yeah, Kentucky this year, so I think they're something like 71st in success rate, which you look at and you're like, oh, that's against, playing a team like Tennessee's offense. It kind of gives you pause. But also you had, a game again with a backup quarterback. You had some games where just things got really ugly. Kentucky, you said it. I mean, they have not allowed more than 24 points in a very long time. Also, here's a number that I read this week that really pushed me over to taking Kentucky to cover. Is Kentucky is 11-2-1 against the spread as an underdog, with 7 outright wins since the middle of 2019. So if you go back 3 years, Kentucky 11-2-1 against the spread as an underdog. Mark Stoops, I mean, this is the game that he plays, right? I mean, he plays these games where when he's an underdog like that, no one is better than Mark Stoops of spinning up motivation, of mucking up a game, of making it ugly when it needs to be ugly. When he's an underdog, we saw it a couple weeks ago. I picked Kentucky to beat Mississippi State, and I had Mississippi State fans in my mentions on Twitter when I posted that pick, saying they were going to blow out Kentucky because they had beaten Texas A&M by a lot the previous week, and Mark Stoops went out and mucked up the game and won the game. And I don't think Kentucky doesn't have enough firepower to win this game. I just truly don't believe that they do. I would be shocked if they won. But I also think, like, when you look at, what Tennessee is doing, I think Kentucky is good enough on defense, and they're definitely good enough on offense to score 24, 27. And so if you're looking at, a play here, I don't think Tennessee is going to score 40 points. I think, let's say, best case scenario, I think for Tennessee is probably 38 like they scored on Florida. And I think Kentucky's defense is better than Florida's. And so let's say they score 38. I still think Kentucky's going to score in the high 20s. I think it could be a 38-28 kind of game. But I'm going to go Kentucky to cover.
I like it.
Yeah. I understand. Chris in the YouTube chat says, I'm so conflicted, I don't think I can touch it. I understand. If you can't touch this game, I do not blame you. What I'm saying is Mark Stoops, 14 games against the spread as an underdog, and you're 11-2-1. That's a pretty good data point to point to. That's a lot of games over the last 3 years. So give me Kentucky.
It is a lot of games over the last 3 years. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Kentucky's going to win this game, but they could. They very well could. And
God, if they do, man. If you're a Georgia fan trying to make some money on your tickets, which I don't necessarily condone, you may want to sell them to your friends at a markup before Saturday.
That boy's out before 7:00 tomorrow night. Unload those.
Yeah.
One other thing that I was looking for here is a Tennessee team total in this game, which I'm still trying to find.
Yeah.
There's about 300 different prop bets you can bet on this game. Let's see. Yeah, and I know how good Tennessee's been in the red zone, but I just think, Kentucky can hold them to some field goals. But whatever Tennessee's team total is in this game, I would, if it's in the 39.5 or up kind of range, then I would under it.
Yeah, we can talk about some other games, but I'll find that team total for you real quick while we talk. So
all right. We're coming up on an hour here, so let's try and kind of go rapid fire here to end.
Yeah.
Michigan State on the road at Michigan. Wolverines are a 22.5 point favorite. I'm going to do it, John. All right. I think Michigan State's run defense is gotten better. They've gotten a lot of injured guys back. Their secondary is, pretty middling, but I haven't seen JJ McCarthy slice anybody up with his arm. He's great on play action when Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and those guys are ripping off big runs. But I think Michigan State, there's no way they're winning this game, but it's a rivalry game. It's a night game. This is a game that has a tendency to get a little mucked up. It's probably going to be cold.
Yeah.
Just give me the Spartans plus 22.5 and I'll hang on. If this moves before kickoff and gets to 24, then I would really, really love it. But even at 22.5, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it big time at 22.5. Mel Tucker, he is coaching for there's a lot on the line for him, and he kind of owns Jim Harbaugh. And so, you look at that motivation, you look at, Michigan State, their offense their offense, but their team in general has just been off the rails this year. And so, but I do think this is a good opportunity for them. I think a little bit of strength on strength. I don't think Michigan will be able to score enough points to beat them, by 24. So give me the Spartans to cover. Also, our good buddy Dwight has said that Tennessee is 39.5 team total.
Yeah, give me the under on that all day.
Yeah.
I feel very good on that one. Okay. Ole Miss going on the road to Texas A&M, a slim 2-point favorite.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want to spend 7 minutes here talking about A&M,
No.
but do you have a lean or a pick or a thought on this game?
Yeah, I think Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to bounce back and win this game in a pretty decent fashion. I think Ole Miss is. I think they have a winning record in College Station in the last few years. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, I think Ole Miss is going to be able to run the ball. I think the challenge with Texas A&M, the challenges with their offense are going to continue. I don't trust Ole Miss's defense necessarily against the run. Tank Bigsby, torched them for 179 yards. I think A-Chain is probably going to gain a lot of yards, but I think Lane Kiffin is due for a bounce back with that offense. And Jimbo, man, I'm just not a believer in Jimbo. I'm not a believer in that culture. Their locker room is on fire. This week after they had 4 players suspended indefinitely, they have all these rumors of people transferring. I think this is all the makings for Ole Miss to win this game by a touchdown or more. So give me Ole Miss.
I like it. I got a really unconventional play here.
I love it. Go for it.
If you take the Vanderbilt game out of the equation, Ole Miss's offense has been really bad in the second half. Shout out to Cover 3 podcast. They were talking about Ole Miss, their offense when first quarter when they're running their script, very very good.
Yeah.
Hasn't been super good after that. Depending on what book you use, you can go ahead and bet the second half line right now on Ole Miss Texas A&M. Yep. So, and it's a pick 'em. So even if Ole Miss is up 24-0 at halftime, it's still a pick 'em. So I went ahead already and bet Texas A&M pick 'em on the second half line.
Yep.
And I feel pretty good about it.
Mm-hmm.
For all that's going on at Texas A&M, I think maybe actually kind of cutting out some of the noise, like getting some of these guys out of the locker room. I know they're talented kids, but they're all freshmen. I think they might actually kind of rally together. I don't know. This line stinks to me. I'm not touching the line straight up. But John, do you have any more picks?
The only other one that I had that we didn't talk about was Wake Forest and Louisville. Wake Forest is a 3.5-point favorite at Louisville. Louisville gave up 34 points to Boston College. Phil Jerkovic threw for 304 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think Sam Hartman is about to just light Louisville on fire. So I don't trust the Wake Forest defense against that Louisville offense, but give me if you're looking for something to throw into a parlay, for example, Wake Forest at -3.5 is a pretty good play this week. I think they're going to win that game by 10-17. So that's the only one that was on my list that we don't have. Give me Wake Forest and Sam Hartman going in and torching that Louisville defense that has been solid at times, but when that secondary gets on their heels like they did at Boston College, they can get torched, and I think Hartman's going to keep them on their heels all day.
I'm with you, man. I'm here for it. I'm on that line as well. I would bet that up to -6.5 all day.
Yep. Correct.
I wouldn't be surprised if Wake wins this game by 21. I also, the over is probably not a bad play here either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the over is in this game. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Is this a night game?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just had it. Hang on. Yeah, this is when we say everyone listening. This is when we say we're going to quickly do some rapid fire and wrap it up. We close all of our tabs so we don't have any of the games anymore.
No worries. Whatever the over is,
it's a 3:30 game. The over you can actually get 63.5 right now, which I which I would take the over.
Yeah,
for sure. I think this is a 40. This is a 42 to this could be a 42 to 30 kind of game. It feels like 24. Yeah. I think 63.
Well,
and a
that
half.
would 63.5. I love it. I think we both love the line, like the over.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's what we got for you guys tonight. Thanks for everyone that jumped in the chat. Really enjoy interacting with you guys there. If you have not subscribed to the Dawgs Central YouTube channel, check us out there. Also, please go and check out dawgcentral.com and the Dawgs Central podcast feed, which this will be posted to shortly. So, John, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Nope. Excited for a great slate of college football. What I will say is today, Thursday, if you're listening to this on Thursday, if you're listening to it tomorrow, today's Thursday, October 27th. We have 27 straight days with football on the television. That takes us right into Thanksgiving. So we have a break before Thanksgiving Day, but 27 days with football on the television. Then you get a Wednesday off, and then you get Thanksgiving Day and rivalry weekend. So absolute best
America.
This is the best time of year. 27 days with football on your television. So enjoy it.
Live it up, degenerates.